I caught my wife cheating with my best friend and exposed them at our anniversary party. My name is John, and I am 52 years old. My wife's name is Serena, who is 47. We have been married 24 years, with our 25th anniversary coming up in a month. We have 2 boys, Michael and Ben, both married and just starting families of their own. Both have remained geographically close to us, and we see them often. I work for a drug manufacturer in New Jersey that produces ethical drugs as well as generics, and we are one of the largest manufacturers on the East Coast. The FDA closely monitors us, and it is critical that all drugs are accounted for at all times. Recently, our FDA inspector found some discrepancies in our paperwork, and our audits became more frequent. Because of my position as VP of Compliance, I have been working very long hours and traveling twice a month for the past 8 months to our warehouse many miles away. It was starting to cause problems in my personal life, but we were very close to recertification, and I had started to ease my workload. I had decided to retire just as soon as I had the new compliance techs up and running, and our certification was either complete or in progress. I had not told Serena, as I wanted it to be a surprise. I was hoping to make that announcement by our anniversary. I found some time at work one afternoon and went downtown to find a jeweler for a special project. I was looking for someone to reset a diamond I owned into a necklace for Serena as our silver anniversary gift. I found the small jewelry shop a friend had recommended, tucked off a side alley downtown. I walked in and spoke with the owner, who had immigrated to the country over 15 years ago. His English was perfect. I had a 1.15-carat diamond ring that I no longer wore, and I wanted the stone reset into a necklace. He showed me several white gold and sterling silver settings. I picked one that had 3 small diamonds surrounding the center stone. It was beautiful. We agreed on a price. He photographed the stone for security and told me it would be ready in about 2 weeks. Perfect. As I walked back out to the main street, I glanced to my right and saw Serena coming out of a hotel lobby. Not wanting her to spot me and ask what I was doing in that part of town, I stepped back into the alley and watched as she hailed a cab. I was surprised, as I had no knowledge of any plans she had downtown, and certainly none involving a hotel. As I watched, I saw Bill exit the hotel and walk up to her. He said something and she laughed. Then she got into the cab and left while Bill walked away in the opposite direction. Bill was my close friend. He and I had met when I first joined the company, and he was our realtor. We became friends over time, and he and his wife, Sally, were frequent visitors to our home. We had known them for just over 10 years and had taken a few trips together before my work schedule became too demanding. As the cab pulled away, I told myself there was probably an innocent explanation. Maybe she was helping plan something for our anniversary, and Bill was involved. I decided to wait and see how it played out, and I would ask some careful questions at home that evening. Serena and I lived in a large 2-story colonial in a comfortable part of town. I had done well in my career and had a comfortable salary. I had also inherited a sum from my parents that had grown considerably under good investment advice. Serena and I had agreed not to touch it until I retired, and that time was now approaching. She always had a drink ready when I came home, and we had a routine of sitting together and talking about our day. I thought tonight's conversation might be very interesting indeed. I walked in from the garage, put down my briefcase, shed my jacket and tie, and found Serena waiting as usual. She asked how my day went. I told her it was productive and that I had taken care of some things I had been meaning to get done. Then she said she had been home all day, just doing some cleaning and tidying up. I was immediately alert. Why would she volunteer that she had been home all day when she had clearly been downtown around lunchtime? I decided to probe gently. I asked if she had seen Bill lately, mentioning I had something to pass along to him. She said she had not seen him since we visited their place about a week ago. The lies were beginning to stack. I decided not to push it further. I was far too unsettled by what I was beginning to suspect. Serena and I had not been intimate for over 6 months. I had tried to initiate things several times, and each time she had quietly declined. The last time was a Sunday evening, when she pleaded a sudden headache. I had not pressed the issue for fear of making her angry. Now I wondered if there was another reason entirely. I suggested we have Bill and Sally over for dinner that Friday. She said she did not think she wanted to have people over that week and suggested the following week instead. I pointed out that I had to travel the following week and would rather do it sooner. I then asked as casually as I could if something had happened between her and Bill, because she seemed uneasy whenever his name came up. She stood up abruptly and left the room, saying something about needing the bathroom. I sat with her reactions and her answers and knew, with a certainty that settled in my chest like a stone, that she was guilty and that Bill was involved. When she returned, I let the subject drop and instead asked about plans for our anniversary the following month. I suggested a dinner party at the house. Bill and Sally, Justin and Phyllis, our sons and their wives, catered so it would be no strain on either of us. She said she had not thought about it yet. I said that might be a good idea since neither of us had had much fun lately, and I did not know why. She said it was because I had been working so hard. I then brought up our lack of intimacy, telling her I had not been too tired for that, but she had not been in the mood for months and I did not understand what was going on. She snapped back that she had not been feeling well and insisted that it was actually me who had not been interested. She was angry, and not just from being challenged. She was angry because I was right and she was not going to tell me so. I apologized and told her I would back off. I went to my study and sat with the television on, thinking through what to do next. I decided my upcoming trip would be the key. She and Bill would be too cautious to meet while I was home and alert. But if I appeared to leave on schedule, they might feel safe enough to act. The next day I reached out to a contact in the electronics industry whom I had worked with on several projects over the years. I told him what I needed and he told me what to buy. I placed an order with the supplier he recommended and had it delivered to my office that afternoon. My plan was straightforward. I had 10 voice-activated recording devices, all small and easy to conceal, along with 2 receivers. One had a range of up to a mile and would monitor devices placed throughout the house. The other had a shorter range and would pair with a device I planned to conceal in Serena's purse, with its receiver hidden in the trunk of her car. That way, any conversation she had in the car or anywhere she carried her purse would be captured and recorded for up to 5 hours. I placed the house devices that evening while she was at the store and set the main receiver up in my workshop in the basement. I tested it using the radio in the spare bedroom and confirmed everything was working clearly. Later that night, after she fell asleep on the couch, I secured the small device inside her purse and installed the car receiver in the trunk. Both tested perfectly. Friday passed slowly. I was torn about what I expected to find. Part of me wanted nothing to be on the recordings. I wanted my life to remain exactly as it had been, quiet, stable, and built on a marriage I had believed was solid. The other part of me already knew. That evening, after dinner, I waited for her to go to bed and then went down to the workshop. The recorder had picked up something. I rewound the tape and pressed play. I heard the phone ring. Serena answered. I could only hear her side of the conversation, but the meaning was clear enough. She said, "Why are you calling me now?" "No, you know I won't meet you today or tomorrow. I won't do anything until he goes out of town." "Yes, same time and place. Goodbye." There was nothing else of note on the recording. A call from one of our sons later that morning, but nothing further. I did not need to hear anything more. I stayed away from her as much as I could that weekend. I was angry in a way I had never been before, deep and cold and steady, and I knew I had to be careful not to let it show. I needed more before I could speak to a lawyer. I needed her voice on tape with his. The following Wednesday, I told Serena I had rescheduled my trip and would be traveling the next week instead, leaving late morning and returning by dinner. I said I had some things to take care of for the anniversary party and would be out most of the day. I watched her smile and say she was looking forward to the party. An hour after I left, she called Bill. I did not need to listen live since it was being recorded. That evening I retrieved the tape and played it back in the workshop. She told him that I had changed my schedule and would be leaving later and returning earlier than originally planned. She said they could still meet at lunchtime but that she would need to be home early. She also said, in a tone that sounded tired rather than tender, that they needed to end things. She said she meant it. She said I might not need to travel as much going forward and that they would have to talk. I stopped the tape and reset it. So Serena had decided to end the affair. It did not matter. It was already too late. I contacted my lawyer during those weeks and had divorce papers prepared. I spoke only when necessary at home and avoided being alone with her. She noticed my distance about a week before the party and asked if something was bothering her, whether she had done something wrong. I told her I hoped she had not done anything that would give me reason to be upset. She started to respond but could not find the words. She broke down and began to cry. I told her I was sorry for putting it that way, that I was just letting off steam. She wiped her eyes and went quietly to the kitchen. We did not speak much after that. Then came the evening that changed things further. While listening to the recordings, I heard the doorbell ring at our house. It was Bill. Serena kept him at the door and would not let him in. I heard her tell him firmly, "Not here, not in my home, never." She said it was over and she had meant it. The door slammed. I heard her storm back inside. It sounded as though Bill had been pushing for more and she had refused. That detail I filed away carefully. The anniversary party was planned for a Friday evening, a day before our actual anniversary. It was catered, so there was little for us to do beyond getting dressed. I asked Serena to wear the blue dress I had bought her the previous year. She said she planned to and that she loved it, even if she did not look as nice in it as I claimed. She smiled when she said it, the first genuine smile I had seen from her in weeks. I wanted her to have good things to remember from that evening. I wanted this anniversary to be remembered for a long time. Before the guests arrived, I gave her my gift. I went to the dresser and brought out the box the jeweler had given me. I moved behind her and fastened the necklace around her neck. She stepped to the mirror, said it was absolutely beautiful, and turned to thank me with a kiss. We shared that moment, and then we went downstairs. As I followed her down the staircase, I thought about what I had just told her. That I loved her. It was true. That was the hardest part of all of this. I did love her. I simply could not forgive what she had done, the betrayal of our vows, and the betrayal by a man I had trusted completely. Each time the pain threatened to overwhelm me, I thought of those recordings, and I found the steadiness I needed to continue. Bill and Sally arrived first. I shook Bill's hand and welcomed him in. He told me I had the best of everything: a beautiful home, wonderful children, a wife to be proud of, and what more could any man ask for? I thanked him and said that Serena and I had been very happy together for the past 25 years, but that things are not always what they seem, and I trusted he understood what I meant by that. I turned to Sally and embraced her warmly. She congratulated me and wished us many more years of happiness. I thanked her quietly and said I wished I could count on that, but it might not be in the cards. She looked at me in surprise. I shook my head slightly to let her know this was not the moment. She took Bill by the arm and guided him toward the bar. Our sons arrived shortly after, followed by Justin and Phyllis. The evening filled quickly with conversation and the warmth of people who had been part of our lives for years. The caterers had done an excellent job. Dinner was served beautifully. During the evening I watched Bill and Serena circle each other carefully, unable to find a moment alone. At one point I saw her draw him into a corner and speak to him quietly and earnestly. Whatever she said, the easy smile on his face faded. He glanced up and caught me watching. I held his gaze for a moment and then turned away. After dinner, I stood to give a toast. I thanked everyone for being there and raised a glass to friends, to family, and finally to Serena. As every face in the room turned toward her, I set my glass down on the table without drinking. Only Serena saw me do it. She understood. Later in the evening, Bill found me and said Sally and Serena had both been asking what was wrong with me. He offered to help if something was bothering me. I told him there was actually something I could use his input on, and asked if he and Sally could come by the next morning around 8:30 for breakfast. I said I could use Sally's perspective as well. He agreed and asked for a hint. I told him it was nothing to worry about, just something job-related that I wanted to share with everyone at once. Not even Serena knew yet. He accepted that, and I watched him relay the news to Sally and then to Serena. Her posture relaxed visibly. She thought it was a work announcement. Good. The guests departed one by one. Sally hugged me before leaving and told me quietly that if I needed to talk before morning, I should call her. Her simple kindness in that moment cost me more than anything else that evening. The innocent are always the ones who feel it most. After the caterers had gathered the perishables and gone, I turned off the lights and went upstairs. Serena was sitting in one of the chairs in our bedroom, still dressed. I sat down across from her. I told her I thought the evening had gone well. She returned the smile, but the worry was plain on her face. She asked why I had set my glass down without drinking when I made the toast to her. I told her I was not sure, and asked what she thought. She said she did not know, that she had not been aware of doing anything wrong. She asked if she had displeased me in some way. I said I did not quite believe that was true, and that I thought there were some very serious problems in our marriage, but that I was too tired to go into it that night. I told her I was going to sleep in the guest room and we could talk in the morning. I had never slept in the guest room in all the years we had lived in that house. The pain of walking down that hallway and closing the door behind me was almost more than I could stand. I checked my briefcase for what I would need in the morning and then lay down in the dark. Knowing sleep would not come easily, about an hour later, I heard a soft knock and Serena's voice asking if she could come in. She knocked again. I did not answer. Eventually, she went back to the bedroom. I lay there for a long time before sleep finally came. I woke at my usual time but stayed in the room until I heard her go downstairs. Then I went to the bathroom, dressed, and waited until nearly 8:15 before going down myself. She was sitting at the kitchen table, not moving, not looking up as I entered. I said good morning and asked if there was coffee. I poured a cup that had been sitting for hours, bitter and thick, and carried it to my seat across from her along with the morning paper. She looked up after a moment and asked in a quiet voice whether I suspected her of something. She had been crying. I was about to respond when the doorbell rang. She went to the door and opened it to find Bill and Sally standing there. Bill mentioned that I had invited them the previous evening. Sally looked at Serena with concern and asked if she was all right. Serena said she was fine and let them in. Once everyone was seated, Bill and Sally side by side on the couch, Serena in her chair, looking frightened, I went to my briefcase and removed 2 large manila envelopes. I carried them to the center of the room and faced all 3 of them. I told them I had given what I was about to share a great deal of thought. I said I had been working long hours and traveling more than I should have, that many people had been depending on me, and that I had not wanted to let them down. I told them that I had hired 3 new compliance technicians and they were finally able to handle the workload on their own. It had always been my plan to retire as soon as I felt I could step away, and that time had come. The previous week I had resigned from my position. Serena looked up and asked why I had not told her sooner, that she would have supported my decision and that she knew the job had been wearing me down. Bill added that I did not need to keep working for people who did not appreciate what I brought to the table. I told them both that I was glad to hear they supported the decision, and that I had been planning to take my wife on a trip beginning on our 25th anniversary. I told them I had booked flights to Miami, and from there we would board a cruise. Serena smiled and asked what I meant by the phrase I was planning on taking her. I paused. This was the moment. There would be no going back once I said what I was about to say. I told her I had been thinking about how inconvenient it might be for her schedule, specifically her Wednesday afternoon meetings with Bill at the hotel, if she were going to be away. All three faces turned to me at once. I walked to the table and pressed play on the recorder I had placed there earlier. I had prepared a tape with carefully selected excerpts from their phone conversations and from the recording made during their last Wednesday meeting. The voices that came through the small speakers were unmistakable. I let it play for a few moments and then switched it off. Serena looked as though I had struck her. She went completely still, her eyes wide, the color draining from her face. She sank into the nearest chair with her hands covering her face and said in a barely audible voice, "Oh please, God no." I looked at Bill. He wore an expression of shock, but what drew my attention more was the look on Sally's face. She was furious. Serena was now sobbing openly and looked up at me through tears, asking how long I had known and begging me to let her explain. Sally rose from the couch with a fury I had never seen from her before. Bill stood as well and turned toward her, just as she struck him across the face with her open hand as hard as she could. The sound was like a crack. Bill staggered back. Sally stood over him, shaking with anger. Then she turned on Serena with real venom and told her she had just destroyed 2 marriages, and that Bill was not worth it. I stepped back into the conversation before things escalated further. I told Bill to get out of my house and that I never wanted to see or speak to him again. I told him he had been supposed to be my friend. Then I turned to Sally and told her I had something for her. I handed her the second manila envelope, a complete record of all phone calls between the two of them, detailed and thorough. I told her it should be useful if she intended to file for divorce. Sally took the envelope and walked out without another word. Bill followed behind her, looking lost and deflated. I genuinely hoped Sally would hold him accountable for every bit of what he had done. I turned back to Serena, who had been standing in the middle of the room, watching the whole scene unfold between Bill and Sally. She knew by now that she had played a hand in destroying their marriage as well. I told her that Bill and Sally had been 2 of our closest friends for over a decade, and that she had managed to destroy both of their lives. I told her Sally was a good and decent woman who had done nothing to deserve this. Serena kept crying and asking me to let her explain. She said she had been so alone while I was away, that Bill had simply been a friend at first and that things had gone too far, and that it would never happen again. She asked me to forgive her and give her the chance to make things right. I waited until she finished. Then I told her that in the days after I discovered the affair, I had done a great deal of thinking. I had gone through the pain of it carefully and honestly. I had wondered whether she had done this before, whether I could build a life without her, and what our sons would think. She said we did not need to tell the boys, that this had never happened before, that she and Bill had only met a handful of times and only in the last 2 months or so, and that she truly loved me and wanted only me. She said Bill had simply been there during a time when I was not. He had complimented her and paid her attention, and she had been lonely. I told her I understood what had happened but not why she believed it was acceptable. I told her I could have forgiven her if she had come to me and told me something was wrong in our marriage. I could have worked through it if she had insisted we go to counseling, if she had fought for us in any way at all. But she had not. She had turned instead to another man and given him everything she had promised only to me. I could not forgive that. Not now. Not ever. With that, I handed her the second envelope. I told her those were divorce papers, prepared the previous week after I submitted my resignation. I told her she would be well taken care of. I wanted the process to be simple and straightforward. If she did not contest it, I would leave her the house and a substantial settlement. If she chose to fight it, I would bring every piece of evidence I had collected into court and fight for everything. Serena dropped to her knees. She was screaming through her tears, asking me to give her one more chance, telling me she was sorry, telling me she could make it right. I told her I was leaving for what was to have been our anniversary trip. I had left instructions with my attorney on how to reach me and how to handle the proceedings. I did not intend to see or speak to her again. I also told her I had written a letter to each of our sons explaining exactly what had happened and how she had betrayed our marriage. If she contested the divorce, those letters would be sent. If she accepted my terms, the boys would never see them. In the meantime, I would tell Michael and Ben that Serena and I had grown apart and decided to separate, and I trusted they would not think too badly of me. Serena was completely shattered. She had collapsed to the floor, lying there with her arms over her head, sobbing without restraint. I stood and looked at her for a long moment. I could not feel anything except the echo of what I had heard on those recordings. That memory was enough to give me what I needed to turn away. I picked up my bag and walked out of the house we had raised a family in. I could still hear her crying as I stepped through the front door for the last time. I had tickets to Miami and a hotel reservation waiting for me, and enough saved to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I intended to make use of it. I wanted a new beginning. I hoped that with enough time I could find my way back to something resembling the person I had been before all of this. I was exhausted. Tired of people who called themselves friends and then acted without conscience. Tired of trying to hold together a marriage while my wife could not bring herself to tell me it was falling apart. Tired of extending trust to people who had long since stopped deserving it. I had treasured my friendship with Bill and he had thrown it away without a second thought. I had believed my love for Serena was the kind that could survive anything, but I had learned that love cannot hold its shape when the other person quietly changes every rule it was built on. I closed the door on 25 years of my life and drove away. As I pulled out of the driveway for the last time, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Serena had run out of the house. She was standing at the end of the drive, watching the car go, and then she sank slowly to the ground. I kept driving. I slowed the car to watch as I felt some sense of pleasure. Maybe she had really cared, maybe she cared enough to feel the pain that I had been living with since I found her out. I took my foot from the brake pedal and pushed on the gas. My future was waiting. In the end our divorce was finalized, and everyone got what they deserved, or not. Sally and Bill didn't come to a resolution either, and I still keep in touch with her occasionally, and that's the story of how my marriage of 25 years came to an end. Thanks for watching. Please share and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Take care.